This weekly public affairs TV show has been on the air continuously since April 1979, and for years now also on ABC TV 25 in Palm Beach and other networks nationwide. I've had the privilege of interviewing world leaders in a wide range of subjects with a view to promoting peace, friendship and culture, health and positive solutions based on true facts and understanding. And now here we are, experiencing an unprecedented time in history with this COVID-19 pandemic and the economic crisis. We are already seeing life and game-changing realities affecting all our lives. Unquestionably, the absolute priority must be to all work together to address this and minimize suffering and deaths. In a spirit of genuine cooperation, one can address and resolve and take an open-minded, practical look at all options in defeating this pandemic. In fact, there are drugs being tested today for potential efficacy that were developed years ago and some that have only recently become available. All over the world, leaders in science and research are desperately seeking ways to slow the spread of this virus and enable better treatment of severe cases. Those patients that too often end up on ventilators, with many not surviving. More than 200 clinical trials of COVID-19 treatments or vaccines are taking place in Europe, in Asia, and in Israel, and new ones are being added every day. For example, Dr. George Church, the world-leading geneticist at Harvard, is working to make humans immune to all viruses using CRISPR-Cas9 gene modification therapy. He helped pioneer mapping the human genome and editing DNA. His lab is working to make humans immune to all viruses, eliminate genetic diseases, and reverse the effects of aging.
We have a strategy by which we can make any cell or any organism resistant to all viruses by changing the genetic code. So if you change that code enough, you now get something that's resistant to all viruses, including viruses you never characterized before.
Unfortunately, his therapy is still at least 3 years away. And new treatments for COVID-19 are very urgently needed at this time. My point is, what's needed today is full unhindered cooperation, and because it's so relevant for these reasons, we'll hear from some top leaders after these messages.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
Life Extension magazine brings you new discoveries in health and anti-aging. Our science-based research and supplements are so advanced they're many years ahead of the medical mainstream, with quality control standards that exceed FDA mandates. Life Extension has covered groundbreaking medical research for more than 35 years. For your health and future, you deserve the best. Learn more at lifeextension.com.
I know that there is not a section of the globe that is not afflicted with the corona. And it requires us, all of us, to change our way of living, our way of life.
Our brave doctors, nurses, and responders are fighting to save lives. Our workers are racing to deliver critical medical supplies. Our best scientists are working around the clock to end this pandemic.
I think it's right to start to plan for what things are going to look like when we're through this and how we're going to start up again. Absolutely, we need to be doing that, and it's important because people need to know that the confidence exists that we will get through this.
Bill Faloon compiled the 1,500-page medical reference book, Disease Prevention and Treatment. His latest book is Pharmacracy, How Corrupt Deals and Misguided Medical Regulations Are Bankrupting in America, and What to Do About It. He's also director and co-founder of Life Extension. He is spearheading human age research whose long-range goal is the radical extension of the healthy human lifespan. The organization now has over 100,000 members, and each month mails 300,000 copies of the Extension magazine to newsstands, subscribers, and members. To promote Life Extension innovative medical concepts, Bill has been featured in hundreds of media appearances, including The Phil Donahue Show, The Joan Rivers Show, Tony Brown's Journal, ABC News Day One, maybe you're involved there, and Newsweek magazine. So now I'd like to bring Bill up to the podium for our keynote speech.
Thank you for those kind words. I founded an organization in 1977 that has since grown to be the world's largest consumer-based anti-aging medical group. And in the early 1980s, we identified some methods to slow aging and reduce the risk of degenerative diseases associated with growing older. And since then, these concepts have been recognized, for the most part, by the conventional medical establishment. And what our controversial position today is based on a lot of research, by the way, is that aging is a reversible condition.
My main concern from a historic perspective is about the delays in making effective therapies widely available to save lives today. For example, the major cause of primary liver cancer is the hepatitis C virus. Hepatitis C not only leads to cirrhosis and liver failure, but it also increases the risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and head and neck cancers. Up until this recent coronavirus pandemic, hepatitis C often killed more Americans than any other infectious agent. But hepatitis C is curable in over 95% of the cases. So the Life Extension Group that advocates innovative ways to prevent and treat diseases more effectively recommends that all Americans aged 18 to 79 should all undergo blood screenings, because virtually everyone can be cured with a protocol including a drug called ribavirin.
The first drug we're going to talk about was actually discovered in the United States. It's a broad-spectrum antiviral drug called ribavirin. Now, the name on this box reflects a brand name of ribavirin sold in Mexico. It's made in the United States, sold in Mexico, sold in Europe, sold in Japan. It's sold all over the world because it works. It's documented in a couple thousand studies to be a broad-spectrum antiviral drug. It can cure a common flu within a couple days, whereas if you don't have this drug, you might suffer for a couple weeks. In elderly people who suffer from influenza, which can be life-threatening, ribavirin often suppresses that virus within 48 hours. Now, one of the most common uses that ribavirin is employed for is hepatitis C. The FDA-approved drug called interferon only affects about 20% of the hepatitis C patients in a positive way. That means only 20% of the hepatitis C patients receiving alpha interferon get a remission effect. Now, if you combine the ribavirin with the interferon, you can improve that effectiveness rate by up to 10-fold. 10 times more hepatitis C patients benefit when the unapproved drug ribavirin is combined with the FDA-approved drug alpha interferon.
And now newer drugs are available, such as Sovaldi. This has dramatically improved the hepatitis C cure rates when combined with ribavirin. Unfortunately, hardly anyone knows about the FDA's delay in approving ribavirin and the horrific suffering and death caused by the failure to approve this life-saving drug much sooner. No less than 2.4 million people in the United States have chronic hepatitis C, and 44,000 new cases are reported each and every year. This virus causes chronic inflammatory damage and can result in cirrhosis and liver failure. But the hepatitis virus does not only stay in the liver, it infects other parts of the body, and those diagnosed with primary liver cancer usually die within 12 months. I'm sharing these disquieting facts to emphasize the need to have a cooperative, open mind in addressing present-day emergencies. About 75% of those infected with hepatitis C in the United States are born between the years 1945 and 1965. For decades, hepatitis C patients have endured a 6-month treatment using alpha interferon, causing brutal side effects with no guarantee whatsoever that the virus will be eliminated. But when the antiviral drug ribavirin was added to the alpha interferon, the cure rates improved significantly. The good news today is that several hepatitis C drugs are available that are relatively non-toxic and have cure rates well over 95%. But most of these new drugs still rely on co-administration of ribavirin. Ribavirin, again, is the drug that was delayed and held back for years by the FDA. The hepatitis C virus is the leading reason why 17,000 Americans are waiting for liver transplants today, and so it's so very crucial to eliminate this virus before irreversible liver damage occurs. The scientific literature strongly supported ribavirin and interferon as the very best treatment for hepatitis C infections many years ago. Ribavirin was approved by virtually every country in the early 1980s, but the FDA disregarded these studies and chose instead to take their bureaucratic time in approving a new drug rather than capitulate to the pressure of dying Americans who could have been cured by a therapy that was stuck in the FDA's waiting room. The political suppression of ribavirin provides a real-world example of what's wrong with today's medical regulatory system. Life Extension recognized the efficacy of ribavirin back in 1983, and even though they had no financial stake in it, they fought the FDA to approve it. It took until 1998 for the FDA to finally approve ribavirin, which meanwhile condemned hundreds of thousands of Americans to needless suffering and death. Life Extension's mission was to spare these Americans who were dying because the FDA would not allow them to have access to ribavirin. This is one example of a lethal drug delay. It took Life Extension over 12 years to get the FDA to approve this one drug. Now, science today is discovering new therapies to treat killer diseases, but a labyrinth of governmental bureaucracy denies Americans access to these life-saving medicines. The US Drug Administration, the FDA, is a bottleneck in a corrupt medical system that absolutely must be changed. Now, several decades later, I'm told the FDA is finally approving new cancer drugs much faster, and some of these drugs do save lives. But these new drugs are toxic, expensive, and are often overdosed or over-prescribed. Another example of lethal delays is the antidiabetic drug metformin that was approved in England 37 years before Americans had access to it. How can one justify that? And thinking of diagnostics, most people already do get annual blood tests to check for cardiovascular risk factors, but they don't know that additional tests, such as fasting insulin, glucose and C-reactive protein can indicate future cancer risk. Now that hepatitis C is curable in over 95% of all cases, blood testing for this disease is now highly recommended by Life Extension, and it's a low-cost test that your doctor should prescribe. So as we conclude, these were examples to illustrate my main point, which again is what we need today are scientific solutions to the coronavirus pandemic that are not impeded by the FDA's bureaucratic red tape. And now we will continue with this special program.
As panic spreads amidst the coronavirus outbreak, there is some hope coming out of Israel. Is a vaccine for coronavirus just around the corner? That could be the case in Israel, where a vaccine for the virus is on track to be ready for testing within just a few weeks, although it likely won't be available for months because of lengthy bureaucratic testing and approval. The oral vaccine for adults and children could turn the disease into a very mild cold. The state-funded Migal Galilee Research Institute has been working for the last 4 years towards developing a vaccine that could be customized for various viruses, and it's now being adapted to focus on corona. Israel's science ministry made headlines last month when they said a vaccine could be just 3 months away, but the health ministry doesn't want to spread false hope. The vaccine will consist of a specially produced protein that needs to go through clinical testing for at least 30 days and then human trials for another 30 before going through the process of government approval. A solution to the virus is in dire need, especially given the new results from a U.S. study. Findings by Johns Hopkins University say that most people infected with the coronavirus will show symptoms within 5 days, and almost everyone will be symptomatic by day 12. But the big issue is that the virus is contagious before the symptoms even appear, making it extremely difficult for authorities to contain the pathogen in time.
I want to just take an excerpt out of a recent New England Journal of Medicine. We're talking about how medical progress is made. How does it happen? Well, of course, it's going to require daring innovators and disruptive thinkers, but it also requires volunteer patience. But here is the major problem: the delays that occur, not just because of bureaucracies, but because of business groups too, where you develop a technology and it doesn't move forward fast enough. Metformin, approved in England, 1958. In 1995, well, we were recommending it as an anti-aging drug. Took another 20 years before the FDA approved a study to see if it really works as an anti-aging drug. And it's not the FDA's fault in this case. There really wasn't anybody except people like us pushing for it. And then finally, in 2019, the funding came through. Some individual wrote a $40 million check to see if metformin can really slow down or reverse aging. We'll know the results in 4 or 5 years, but we can't wait that long. We're aging right now. We need to do something. And this is an example of the catastrophic loss of life that occurs when a drug like metformin is delayed to diabetics. We did a calculation based on a study published this year, and about 4 million type 2 diabetics in the United States prematurely died because of the 37-year delay with metformin being approved. And I like to use analogies as it relates to how a technology can emerge without knowing how it happened. Edward Jenner, Louis Pasteur, they developed vaccines to protect against viruses, but they had no idea that viruses existed. In fact, they didn't know that viruses existed until 1892. That's about 127 years ago, and that's when they first identified viruses. Isn't it amazing that technology is that relatively new? 1892. So the point there is 1892, they discover viruses, and here we are in 2019, credibly talking about eradicating all viruses. And in case you don't know about the ones that accelerate aging, there's cytomegalovirus. Most of us have it. About 90% of us have it. It's going to take 3 to 4 years off of our lifespan unless we figure out a way to eradicate cytomegalovirus. Epstein-Barr virus causes lymphoma, a number of other health problems in people. We've got all kinds of herpes viruses out there that create shingles. Viral infections are major problems, in addition, of course, to the flu epidemic that's going around right now. So what George Church is doing, and he feels he'll do that before he reverses aging, wow, we've got a potential to live not just healthy, but not get sick anymore. No more common colds, no more influenza caused by viral type infections. It really is an incredible, incredible advance.
I'm speaking to you at what I know is an increasingly challenging time. A time of disruption in the life of our country. A disruption that has brought grief to some, financial difficulties to many, and enormous changes to the daily lives of us all. That what you do is appreciated, and every hour of your hard work brings us closer to a return to more normal times. I also want to thank those of you who are staying at home, thereby helping to protect the vulnerable and sparing many families the pain already felt by those who have lost loved ones. Together we are tackling this disease, and I want to reassure you that if we remain united and resolute, then we will overcome it. Many people of all faiths and of none are discovering that it presents an opportunity to slow down, pause and reflect in prayer or meditation. It reminds me of the very first broadcast I made in 1940, helped by my sister. We as children spoke from here at Windsor to children who had been evacuated from their homes and sent away for their own safety. Today, once again, many will feel a painful sense of separation from their loved ones. But now as then, we know deep down that it is the right thing to do. While we have faced challenges before, this one is different. This time we join with all nations across the globe in a common endeavor, using the great advances of science and our instinctive compassion to heal. We will succeed, and that success will belong to every one of us. We should take comfort that while we may have more still to endure, better days will return. We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again. But for now, I send my thanks and warmest good wishes to you all.
Human age reversal. We may be there already. Human studies are now ready to begin to confirm meaningful reversal of pathological aging processes. These clinical trials aim to alter older humans so that they function as much younger individuals. Even modest success will result in a paradigm shift that will impart enormous societal benefits, such as sparing Medicare from insolvency. Life extension is not standing idle while 5,000 Americans die each day from age-related illnesses. Joining us are physician scientists who want to hurry up these technologies to keep people from aging to death. While life extension is pushing these projects forward, we need financial help to ensure these studies are carried through to fruition.
This concludes our special show for today from a quarantined location in South Florida. I'm Richard Peritz. And as we conclude, I wish everyone nationwide, globally, in Israel, the United States, all over the world, all the doctors, all the physicians, all the EMT personnel, all the scientists, all people of goodwill, the very, very best.